Alrighty, so we are ready to get started for another EKC Construction Technology webinar. We are live on LinkedIn as well as YouTube, and I'm really excited for today's discussion. We have Rishi and Matt here with us to share their expertise and experience on a variety of things relating to AP processes and more. So without further ado, I will turn it over to them to give an intro to themselves and what they're focusing on. So to get us started, let's go to Rishi. Rishi, give us an introduction to yourself. What you're working on and why.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Being Human. We are an AP document writing and workflow automation solution for construction industry. So before Being Human, I was working as an AI engineer at Bank of America, and I was seeing all the progress we were having in the financial technology world, especially converting the unstructured data into structured data. So that's the kind of progress that I want to bring to an industry which is so critical to our economy, and that kind of motivated us to come to construction. So,
Mhm.
in what we're building is we're building something which saves people time. I mean, that's the most important thing we are after, people's time. And through this solution, what we are also helping people is to also save attention, actually. So human attention is a limited resource, and when we were building this solution, we were very careful that to make sure that the human AI collaboration is seamless.
Mhm.
There's something called a bounding box and a confidence interval on the AIs, and we were uh, very selective to use it in the correct way in the AP workflow. Overall, I'm really excited to have someone like Matt who's kind of seen uh, the first-hand
Mhm.
application of this solution. So thank you so much, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And I did see some thumbs up in the chat, so thank you, audience, for engaging. A quick note to our audience: like, do feel free to comment, ask questions, share a thought in the chat, or share some reactions. So we do see it. We love to see it. And then let's next move on to Matt. So Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Name is Matt Robinson. I've been at Swain Electric for the last 8 years as their chief financial officer. We are a mid-sized electrical contractor in Arizona. We focus mainly on industrial projects and some commercial projects as well. My role here in the last 8 years has been, one of the things I've tried to focus a lot on is improving processes, particularly through automation and software applications. We've adopted quite a few over the last few years.
Mhm.
We work with we've always had a really good ERP system. We work with foundation software for construction. They've been a great partner with us, but we've been able to work with other partners to help improve. One of the areas that we were recently looking at was AP uh, automation, AP management, and that's when one of our most recent technology updates or implementations was with Being Human on that subject of AP automation. So.
All right, awesome. And what I heard was automation, saving time, which I think everybody in the construction industry is really interested in because we never have enough hours. So let's jump into it. So the first topic that I have for you guys, like just in general, accounting. When we think of construction, our minds don't immediately go to accounting. It's kind of this back office process, the unseen side to construction, if you will. But as we know, like money, financials drive everything, and construction's no exception. So tell us more about like this unseen side that we don't see that's impacting our construction workflows.
I could take a quick
Yeah.
stab at that. We, um, I guess our customers they don't really pay. They're paying for, you know, a job to be completed. They're not paying for all the back office work that we do, but it is a necessary thing to be able to properly
Mhm.
manage and make sure that we're taking care of things in a prop, you know, in an accurate way. You know, customers have to be billed correctly.
Right.
But at the same time, we have to know what our costs are. We've got to know, you know, by job and by clients. Job costing is really important in the construction industry. So there's a lot of you know, back office processes that have to take place to make sure everything gets accounted for in an accurate way. And to the extent that a customer is not going to pay for this, the faster, the less friction we can have in doing it, the better. The
Mhm.
less dollars I have to spend in doing it, the better. So
100%. All right. So it keeps the wheels turning, I guess. And then, so specifically, I mean, the financial process in construction, there's a lot of parts and pieces to it, which we were actually just chatting about before this conversation. But specifically, AP invoicing, for those who may not have as much of an idea of, you know, what goes on in the back office world, what specifically is AP invoicing? What's involved with that, and how does it affect the construction process?
yeah, so maybe I could just talk to what our, you know, our process has been in the past.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's, you know, we need to, um, we're going to get a lot we have a lot of costs going on. We're dealing with subcontractors. We're dealing with material suppliers. We have to, you know, pay these people as we go
Right.
along, and we got to make sure that everything is one, recorded accurately, recorded the right job, recorded the right cost code, things of that nature. At the same time, we got to make sure that we're not paying for things that we haven't received. So you have delivery tickets that need to be matched up to invoices, and so
Mhm.
that's you know, that becomes quite a, you know, bottleneck, or can be quite a bottleneck because of the volume of what goes on. You know, like I said, we are a mid-sized company, and it's not uncommon for us to have over 1,000 AP invoices in a month. You know, and in the past, it's, you know, when I got here, this was a very manual process.
Yeah, tell us more about that. What does that mean?
You know, the you know, first of all, invoices are coming in a variety of ways. We used to be very much paper based and mail,
Yeah.
but now we've converted over to email. Most of our invoices now come via email. Um, and then on our end, we wanted to digitize our invoices. Um, and
Mhm.
so we would, you know, take the invoices and packing slips, when we would give them we'd actually save them on our server with a specific naming convention, so that
Yeah.
you know, you know, we have them now in a PDF format, and we can refer to it back that way. But it took a lot of time to match up packing slips with invoices.
Mhm.
You didn't want to pay the invoice so you got the packing slip or the delivery ticket back. Um, but then I think everyone probably understands this. You know, your AP people then have to take these invoices, and they have to be entered in. There's a lot to enter for an invoice.
Yeah.
You got a vendor, a job number, an amount. You got dates are important, discount dates, sales taxes, descriptions, general ledger. All these things have to be entered, and it's a lot for. You can imagine, just the more a manual process is, the more, you know, time it
Yeah.
takes, and the more prone to error it can be. And so, you know,
Yep.
and then, you know, there's also the aspect of what do you do with the invoice once it has been entered, because you have some, you know, there are times there's needs to refer back to invoices later on. You know, once the payment is made. And so we were, taking a lot of time to resave our invoices, our digital invoices. Back in the paper days, you put them in a file cabinet.
Yeah.
Really hard to reaccess. We thought we could improve that by putting them in a specific folder on our server, and be able to access them readily. But we also,
Right.
Foundation has a good way of actually uh, indexing invoices, or you could attach an invoice to Foundation. But that doing that manually, the best we could ever do is like a 45-second per invoice process, multiplied
Yeah.
by 1,000
Sounds per
invoices.
second. Yep. Yep.
So we didn't always do that. It just was too
And
cumbersome.
what you're describing, I'm like having flashbacks to, my earlier days on the job site, digging through like crumpled pieces of paper in a drawer, trying to, make sure all the paperwork was in order to make sure somebody else could understand it and get the information. And it was just a little bit of a nightmare. So, yeah, I think digitization has done a lot for the industry. I do want to kind of segue over to a question that has come in, and I think it's a good one, maybe Rishi, for you to take. So the question here, and I think this is super relevant. So thank you for asking this, Mohammed. What if we apply computer vision in the construction industry? There are multiple applications, and I think this is a really good one, Rishi, considering your background with AI, machine learning, and all that fun technical stuff.
Yeah. Computer vision definitely has a lot of application on construction. One of them that I can immediately think of is safety.
Hmm.
Like something's actually monitoring the site and alerting people when the things are getting unsafe. And see, we can always do that. So the other day I think I was traveling to South America, and they had the traffic light that was
Oh,
guided through computer vision. So like if it was helping people not to bypass the traffic light. So I mean, applications are there, but we gotta be very careful with these models. I mean, accuracies matter. You cannot just roll
hmm.
out a model which is like 60% accurate. No, that's just too bad. We're doing disservice to the industry if we are, throwing out, not good models. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more for the AP process. How does computer vision come into play there, or does it?
So computer vision is part of the model that we have. There is
Yeah,
basically three
excellent.
modalities that operate on these AP invoices. So the number one is computer vision. So it's important how these things look. And then also the layout, how various things are
Mhm.
connected together. Vendor names usually, the field is close to the value. And there's also a language aspect. So all three together, right? And if you just solve it by, let's say, computer vision, you're not going to be able to get the kind of accuracies we are getting. So, and I think multimodal AI is getting bigger and bigger. But as I said, like I'm a huge proponent of having strong model performance, before we take anything into production. And whether it's a AP invoice model or a CV model, before it gets into people's hand, we got to properly test it and have good accuracies.
All right. So I feel like you just took us through like a speed run of applications of AI and computer vision there. So if we break it down a little bit more, and this is just kind of feel free to jump in here if I'm not getting this quite right. But for me, it's like you have this model, you're essentially giving it another pair of like smarter eyes, right? Compared to a human, it can ingest a lot more information than our eyes can, but it's basically going to be able to process and identify things a lot faster, easier, higher volume than we can, so that we can quickly and easily pick out. I think you mentioned like safety hazards, right? And in the
Mhm.
case of invoicing, it may be Matt, to your point, like finding all the data that needs to be entered very quickly and easily, right? Okay,
Yeah. So
awesome.
actually,
So
one point I wanted to add is like
yeah,
the AI confidence. and how the end user deals with these models, it's so
Hmm.
critical. We cannot not show the user. We cannot not show the user that, okay, this right here, the AI has lower confidence. Be careful.
Hmm.
You know,
Gotcha. Yeah, human in the loop to kind of check it is
right?
100% needed. Matt, it looked like you had a thought or a comment there, right?
Um, I guess going back to that computer vision, and that Rishi's talked about that user interface and just how important it is for the one of the things when we were trying to look at things to automate. There's so many things that I think with AI and the technology out there that could just um, be a lot quicker and faster than a human doing it,
Hmm.
finding all that information, and then um, being able to, but when we adopt technology, being able to verify that information is really important, and being able to have a quick way to interface and make sure that the things happening behind the scenes in the software is going accurately, and so just
Hmm.
you a vital point when you're thinking about adopting a solution, a technology, and just you got to always have the ability. Humans got to interact in some way to
Yeah.
verify the accuracy and such.
Yeah, we're the experts, and then we just happen to have this super smart assistant that's helping us out a bit. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I want to maybe kind of go back a little bit to where we left off with, the discussion with you, Matt. Like, we used to do things on paper. There's a lot of data to pull out. It might be really difficult to, get 1,000 documents or whatever it is, processed properly, accurately. What other challenges come up with the AP process, just in general?
Yeah, so I think the kind of alluded to it a little bit. We talked about putting you got to put invoices away in some way. You got to be able to refer back to them, and I think the case in point, a project manager comes along and says, "Hey, I want to know how my job went," and they start digging in. We have great ability. We have with our ERP system, we can see all the costs that hit a job. On a
Hmm.
just sort of a report, but being able to dig in and for a project manager to be able to look and say, hey, I wonder what that cost was. In the old days of, if you think about a file cabinet system with an AP, that
Yeah.
meant you're going to have to go down and start digging through a file cabinet. There might be, you know, there could be huge amounts of invoices. You organize them alphabetically, but that's about as far as it goes. Alphabetically by vendor. Um, you're flipping through a big folder of paper to try to find. Oh, there's that invoice that hit.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? And then I realized, that actually went to the wrong job. Uh, you know,
Needle in a
and
haystack a little
yeah,
bit.
a little bit of needle in the haystack. So that's challenging. And then the other thing I alluded to is that just the volume of transactions that have to go through. I mean, I think the time is spent is really apparent to everybody,
Mm.
but accuracy is also maybe less apparent, but a problem.
Yeah.
Just little things like getting the wrong date could affect not getting a discount on an invoice.
Mm.
Just hitting, recording the invoice to the wrong job, wrong cost code. When we make mistakes like that, one, sometimes they just kind of go on undetected, or two, when you do detect them, it takes a lot of effort to kind of correct things. You got to go back, and it's
Right.
more of a manual process than before. So I think technology properly used, AP automation properly used, can really help to impact the accuracy of the data that goes in. At the end of the day, if we have accurate data, it's easier to tell how this project's doing, how you
Mm-hmm.
know I'm trying to develop my work in process report, and if I have more accurate information, the better that report's going to be, and it just kind of trickles down to everywhere else in the
So
organization.
time, accuracy, searching and finding, and having just good organization to all this stuff is what I'm hearing. Rishi, anything to add to that, like challenges on AP invoicing?
Um, I think that this is very good. Yeah, those four,
Yeah.
the top four.
Cool. So let's see. I know, Matt, you have some content to share with us. I don't know if it makes sense to kind of go through some examples now, but do you
Yeah,
want to maybe talk a little bit more about like document indexing specifically? I know that was one
yeah,
topic that you guys
yeah.
wanted to.
Maybe I could start with just kind of talking about some of the things that we were able to improve when we adopted
Yeah, yeah.
AP automation with being human. Um, so we one thing that going back to the first thing, time, saving
Hmm.
time. All of our invoice entry moved from this manual entering of data into the AP module to an automated system. We really need to do we since most of our invoices are coming via email, we're just forwarding our emails to an address of Being Human.
Yeah.
Being Human then takes our invoices and is basically entering that, doing all that data entry for us. I talked a little bit already about
Wait,
the
pause there. You
yeah,
said
yeah,
something massive. It's doing the data entry for us. So
yes,
if I had a little bot that could do all this data entry, that like sounds like magic.
yeah, it is. And
Yeah.
I mean, this is a huge time savings for us. We went from having to do that by hand and all the time and the concerns over accuracy, and now this is entered for us. Now we talked about also earlier the user interface and being able to verify the information. So what we get with Being Human is we are able to see our invoice. It's digitized for us already,
Hmm.
and then we are able to see on the other side of our. We have on one side of the screen we have our invoice digitized, and on the other side of the
So
screen
yeah, no
we,
scanning, no like,
we don't
yeah,
physically scan it. That just
yeah.
happens on
Mm.
with Being Human's software application. And on the other side of the screen, we have a list of all the fields that you would see in Foundation's AP entry invoice entry module. So the vendor, the date, the job, the GL, and so forth. And
Mhm.
so our AP people went from spending most of their time keying that information in to now we're just looking at it. And Being Human does a really good job of helping you see from this field and really drawing a line between that field and the area on the invoice where it is being picked up. And so and you can imagine, our AP people are spending most of their mental energy just verifying those
Mhm.
invoices as opposed to entering it. The accuracy is better. Um, one thing that I didn't really talk about in our old system much, but maybe we should mention it here, is the approval process of invoices. And
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
everything's got to get approved, and um, the reality was because of the cumberness of that
Hmm.
process, we just said, okay, our check signers when we're signing checks, that's when we're going to approve the invoice. In essence, we're going to go all the way through AP, all the way through entry, and the check signers are going to be right signing checks and saying, okay, yeah, that's okay to do. But with Being Human's application, we are able to move that approval process up into the proper place where it should sit. Whereas, prior to being submitted for payment, an invoice is getting approved. We can route our
Yeah.
invoices electronically to a project manager, to or someone else
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. That
appropriate to
digitization
approve. That's actually, and the reality is, a check signer may not actually know much about an invoice
what
that
the
he's signing the check
yeah.
for, but a project manager might know a lot more. And so,
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
and the approver sees the same thing that the AP person sees. There's, back in the old days when you would get an invoice to enter or to approve, someone would just hand you a piece of paper, a stack of invoices on your desk, and you're just like, yeah, I recognize that guy. That seems right. But you don't, you're just saying this is okay to pay, but you're not, with the Being Human system, we're saying, yeah, this is okay to pay. And also, I'm taking a look at the invoice and saying,
Mm-hmm.
hey, does that hit the right job? Does that hit the right GL? Uh, you know,
All
does the
those
date look
checks.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a second set of eyes verifying the data that's getting entered. So that's
Which is
been
huge.
really huge for us too. So
Yeah, so
you know,
pausing there, Matt, I do want to give a shout out to some of the comments coming in and the questions. So we will get to you. We might just be jumping around a little bit.
yeah,
And then for anybody that's new jumping on, please feel free to add questions, comments. We'll eventually get to them at some point during the discussion today. So absolutely do feel free to use that comment or chat box. We want you to have a good engagement with our speakers today. So I guess I'm kind of flipping back. Do you want to show us a little bit on the
yeah,
platform, Matt?
yeah.
Or
So
let me pull
we
you up.
do a couple things here. So got my screen here. I'm gonna show you just real quickly. This is my Being Human. I'm acting as an approver right here. I'll just kind of quickly show you what this might look like.
And then
Um,
for those on the call, this is a live demo, right, Matt?
yeah, this is live demo. So
Yeah. So
I'll take my $57.49 invoice here,
yeah.
which probably Titan Alarm will be okay if I share with the world. But you can see here's my Titan Alarm invoice. This is a pretty simple invoice, not a job invoice. This is more of like a G&A invoice.
Mm-hmm.
But I have these, got my thing here. But then I've got a little line. I have my vendor, and where is it pulling the vendor? It's kind of taking it right here. I can go down to the next field, the date, 5/1. I can see a line saying, okay, here's the date. Where did you get the amount? Here it is. So you can see I'm able to quickly review this invoice and see. I can go all the way down and have every field on the left side of the screen that is being entered into, that foundation has as a field to enter it. This all came to me just like this. It's already entered.
And actually, pausing for a second, maybe Rishi, could you explain what the green highlights and lines are for us?
This is such an important question. So right
Yeah.
there with the color of this line, we are telling that the AI has high confidence. So you can be a little bit relaxed verifying this one.
Mm.
But there can be an occasions where there'll be a red line, so we want humans to be like very careful. So I want to go back to the point of attention, right? So attention is a limited resource, right? I mean, we have only so much time and
Yeah.
attention, right? And enabling people to know when to focus and when not to focus, and not kind of giving people that information at the right point is critical to what we're doing here.
Absolutely. So green is like a stoplight, right?
High confidence, high confidence. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, taking a second here, when we initially adopted this application, maybe the first time we hit the Titan Alarm invoice, this is a recurring monthly invoice here. There might have been a couple of yellow lines or red lines where there wasn't high confidence, but we, helped the invoice, or we helped Being Human understand, hey, this is where they put the amount field, or this is where they put the date field. If we had to correct something here and there, the next time we had a Titan Alarm invoice, it remembered the the AI functionality, the stuff that Rishi knows really well how to do. They were able to next time we get this Titan Alarm invoice, it just knows where things are. So the more you use it, the more accurate it becomes. And then I'm looking at my GL account here, and looks good to me. If I wanted to change it, I, as the approver, say, hey, that doesn't look like the right account for me. I can change it, but I'm happy with this, so I'm just going to verify and approve it, and we're done. And takes me back to my next invoice. So I'm going to take us to another spot. One of the other things that we talked about, let's think about that. We talked about the old paper file cabinet, and then we at Swain Electric said, hey, we ought to digitize our invoices and we would scan them and go through that process. And then Foundation also has this ability where you could go into the invoice and kind of attach it to a file. And again, I think at the beginning of the discussion, I said that was like just that process alone was like 45 seconds.
Yeah.
I want to show you something really cool. I'm going to go into a report here in Foundation to look up an invoice. And I'm just going to set my date parameters here. And didn't do that exactly right. 125, 03, 3125. I'm going to look up an invoice. There was an air conditioner company. So I'm going to pull up these. Got a list of invoices from this Arizcom, and I've got this $4,206 invoice. I'm going to dig into it, and this is going to take me to a screen where I can see some details about the invoice that were captured when it was entered into Foundation. But down here at the bottom, we have the scanned invoice image, and if you see this, it has a directory here, and it actually has Being Human in the directory. This invoice was when we processed it through Being Human and Foundation together. We built in an indexing process, so this particular invoice was automatically saved to this location. And so I can actually go there and get it. But on top of that, I can just simply click on this little paperclip up here in Foundation, and it will pull up that copy of the invoice. So I have it right here.
Very nice.
And so I can have a project manager or a project engineer. I can give them, they have access to Foundation. Maybe they're not even a Being Human user. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but they do have access to look at their job information and job costs on Foundation. They can pull up any invoice just like this. So more to the file cabinet.
Yeah, for me, I was like, oh, like needle in a haystack problem is just gone.
Yeah,
pretty much. So
that indexing thing was really, really important to us. It is definitely our preferred way of retrieving old invoices. They're always there. We don't have to. I remember in my old life where we were more of a paper environment. You would go and destroy your AP invoices from 5 or 6 years back. Every year you'd have to go, like, we got to shred them, we got to get rid of them. So we didn't get rid of them all because some are really important. As you kind of try to go through that process. This is a big process, And
Yeah.
so anyway, this makes it frictionless. It's easy, and it's more accessible to a wider group. And we have control. We can set the parameters within Foundation as to who can access this.
Yep.
Whereas, it used to be a file cabinet, if you could access physically the file cabinet, you can get in there. So.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Matt. Really appreciate that look at the workflow there. And I, as a technology person, appreciate the live demo. Usually that scares me because something always tends to go wrong, but that was really smooth. So hats off to getting through that for us.
Hey, you're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. And I am going to pull up one of the questions that came through, which I think this is a really good one for you, Rishi, being our AI expert in the room here. So Zainair is asking, there are different types of financial data. So far, you have mentioned only invoice automation, which I think is what we're talking about primarily. But what other finances in construction industry can be dealt efficiently with using AI?
That's a good question. There's certainly other applications towards the end of like financial processes when you're creating the statements, let's say, income or a balance sheet. And there's like if you're a surety and you get all these uh, statements from the contractors to, and you need to eventually convert that into your own financial data. So again, the unstructured to structured data conversion, that's where the AI can play the vital role. And the main reason, I say that is because understand it's not easy for a contractor to give a surety to access to all their financial data, right? Financial platform. They're gonna send them some sort of PDFs and all, right? That's the mode of communication. Now the surety or the whoever needs that data, they need to convert it into their system. So to make it structured. So think about it this, like humans, we are very good with unstructured data, but we're not very good with structured data,
Rishi,
so.
pausing for a second, could you give a distinction or an example between structured and unstructured data?
Okay. So let's say an ERP system Foundation, it's mostly structured data, so tables and how they're connected together, relationships and all. And then a vendor invoice comes, it's from a different entity and it's a PDF. That's a structured data. And now the systems like Foundation, they have trouble handling this kind of unstructured data, right? So now an AI comes in and it converts into structured, right? At the same time, it's letting the human validate the AI's work too, right? The system. So I think that's where the most opportunity is. And did I answer your question, Erin?
I believe it does answer this question. Yeah, I would also probably throw out there are other parts of the financial processes. I know payments is a big one that AI is also helping with. Probably also like verification of work in place. So the AI discussion and application to like construction processes tends to get pretty big if we kind of zoom out a bit. But yeah, I think this was very helpful. I appreciate the explanation of AI is basically this bridge between unstructured, well, in the example, like our PDFs that aren't necessarily friendly with another system, and like connecting that back to our data platforms that need to ingest and understand these things that we're working with. So AI is kind of like that bridge is what I got from it.
Yeah. And one last thing I would say, it helps different systems communicate, right? The
Yeah,
vendor has their ERP, and let's say Matt has his ERP, and how do they
absolutely.
communicate well, right? And that's the kind of problem on a higher level it is solving.
Yeah. So, is there anything else on like data integrations that would be good to know about when looking at solutions that are working on these types of problems?
I could give my perspective. One of the things that when we look at a technology solution,
Mhm.
Data integration with our ERP is probably the most primary factor. There's a lot of factors like how much is this going to cost, what's the benefit, such like that. But being able to have a program or a solution that works with your ERP system, where you don't have to manually do a lot of manual intervention is imperative. We've had a lot of a lot of times we've looked at solutions in the past that have been presented, and the solution will say, hey, we can do an API call and do kind of make it sound like it's okay, going to work, but we find out that we have to stop and pull a report and go through a 5-minute process every day to update information. There's a lot of data in your system of record or in your ERP that can benefit these other solutions, and so being able to share that data across seamlessly is really, really important. If that breaks down, it gets frustrating for the users. Just another program that we use that is a kind of a offset of as a add-on to like our foundation is we use a timekeeping system, and it's really important that when our foremen are entering time and things like that they are able to access a job, like all the active jobs that are out there. And if we had to like go through a manual process to update that every day, it's going to be inaccurate and stuff.
Yeah.
And can be, it ends up that the people that we're trying to benefit would get frustrated with the solution and would stop using it and say, I'm just going back to the old way.
Yeah, so that's a perfect segue, Matt, into this next question or topic. But there's a lot in the industry who are just really happy with the way that they've always done it. They're familiar with their old process. It's really comfortable for them, so they don't really want to change. But we have this influx of really amazing solutions, Being Human being one of them, being able to give time and attention back to people so that they can spend that doing high value tasks. But it takes a big shift, and there's a big change when you're adopting new technology, new processes. Artificial intelligence solutions can oftentimes be scary. So this question here kind of relates into that from Provi. So as someone interested in the evolving role of technology in construction, I'm curious, what do you see as the biggest challenge right now in getting traditional construction teams to adopt new tech tools and processes? So, Matt, I'd love to hear some of your experiences or observations going through the transition process with your teams.
Yeah. The more user interface you have, the harder it is. And so I was just talking about like our timekeeping software. So, a few years ago, we said every foreman that we have is going to get an iPad, and we slapped on to their iPad a few applications. And one of those was like the timekeeping solution. And so, I have a variety of foremen. I have a foreman who love technology, are very comfortable with it, and then I have a lot that aren't. And so one of the challenges you face when developing or bringing in a new solution is there's going to be people that, like I said, they're comfortable with the old way. They know it works. They understand it. And the it's challenging. So for those ones that are like that, hey, I've never even used an iPad, I don't get this touch screen, kind of a thing. They're hard to nuts to crack sometimes. And so one thing that I have attempted to do when we're trying to work through that issue is when we adopt a solution, we usually get a couple of I call them kind of beta users on our end. Hey, we'd like you guys to try this solution out. Um, and I usually pick people that I know are easy to adopt technology, and can
Yeah,
actually give
your
proper feedback.
champions, yeah,
They
innovation
become
champions.
champions, but they give good feedback.
Mm,
What's hard, what's difficult, and we try to address those issues and take care of them as much as we can before we say, okay, everybody's going to have to adopt this right now. Um,
mm,
and so, and then I think the other thing you run into when adopting solutions is people sometimes maybe feel threatened. Like we were just talking about the time we saved in AP automation, and if you're a person that your job is to key enter data all day, and we're going to say, hey, you don't have to do that anymore. You might you can feel threatened by it, but I
yeah.
got to tell you, our experience is um, if you have the right people in place, and willing to adopt it and accept it, they're going to find it to be a more fulfilling role. We just found, we could have, we don't really need someone entering data, and we could have
Mhm.
dropped a position, but we didn't really choose to go that route. We just said there's a lot more other things we can do. We can
So much
bring
more.
more value to the organization. We can be a better resource to our project managers and to our customers. And
Yeah,
and
and I would say, use the human skill set to be proactive instead of reactive, have things like conversations and build relationships, which an AI can't really do as well as, face-to-face human. Um, so yeah, amazing. Rishi, I'd like to hear your thoughts as well on like tech adoption and in particular AI adoption. But before I get your response or your thoughts, just a note to our audience: we're in the uh, last few minutes of the session, so time does fly by. Now is a perfect time to drop in any last thoughts or questions that you have for our panelists today. So please feel free to use that. Their time is here to answer anything that you may have. So with that, back to Rishi. Let us know some of your thoughts on AI tech adoption for contractors.
Yeah, thank you. So, one thing I've learned over the last 3 years is really we should not be talking too much about the technology, and we should be talking about the actual problem that
Yes.
we're solving. And
Amazing.
we
Yes.
when we start there, like the customers were really struggling. Hey, this is such a time-consuming, painful process. Can you automate it? And you then from there you figure out what technology to take, right? It
Mhm.
happens to be that the AI can do it, but it doesn't have to be AI too, right? So we gotta be like careful. And also, a lot of times people are throwing large language models on these two on every problem, but it's not good. I mean, you got to find the right model for the right problem. So, in terms
Mhm.
of my experience with the technology adoption, people are, I mean, are interested in solving their problems, and we've we've had a good amount of success convincing people when we start from the problem, and again, the people who are able to see the future, like someone like Matt, who's like, okay, well, my people are not doing value add and some of these tasks, and how do we
Mhm.
automate it and how do we streamline it? They're easier to convince, but there's also a different group of people. I mean, who are kind of uh, you know not trying to change anything, right? And the change is uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
How do we make it comfortable? So and that
Right.
I've been learning that, and I'm not going to say that I've been good, I've been the best on that, but I think I'm slowly learning how to make this technology adoption happen. And again, people are going to start adopting things faster, which is ready to be adopted.
Hmm.
they're gonna have an edge over their competitors too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what you reminded us of, like, start with the problem. Like, there are real pain points that are ongoing in this industry for so long. And I feel like we have such a big opportunity to start to really address them head on. So I just loved it when you said it. Like, yes, start with like the actual problem. Because people are interested in, not having so much stress or, mundane things in their day. I see Matt nodding his head. I think we can all kind of relate to that. Like, yeah, nobody really wants to be doing a ton of busy work. So, yeah, much better to, smartly, intelligently pair human capabilities with AI or, whatever machine type of capabilities, use both to get a better quality output at the end of the day. At least that's what I'm getting from it. So we're in the last 10 minutes here. I do want to ask for Rishi, what is, next on the roadmap for your solution? I know you guys are always continuously improving. From what I've seen, great about listening to feedback from those that you're working with and trying to, update different things. So tell us a little bit about what's to come.
Yeah. One of the major things that's coming is notifications. And this happened like I think couple months ago. I think Matt asked us like, "Oh, well, my team wasn't able to see this particular comment that I had." Again, going back to human attention, I mean that problem we are solving even better. And then besides that is something we're doing on Q&A. So this communication around AP noise, we gotta make sure that it's tightly coupled to the document itself. And like going back to the filing cabinet analogy, we are taking it to the next level. Even the conversation you had on this particular invoice, it needs to be properly, indexed, and it needs to be there. And maybe like, this vendor, you bought the stuff and 2 years down the line, something happened to it. If
Mm-hmm.
something happened to you, like say the product that you gave to your customer, then you can go back to the vendor and remember all the conversation, you know. So those two are the major ones that are coming. There's a little bit of generative AI we are trying to bring in, but we
Mm-hmm.
are always
Exciting.
very careful
Mm-hmm.
where it fits in. At this point we have very limited generative AI. I mean, there's maybe like less than 1%. Uh, I think we are seeing an application in the when the Q&A comes in and the activities come activity. Matt, you remember that there's like a huge amount of activity sometimes, hundreds of back and forth. I mean, that's where
Mm-hmm.
we feel like the generative AI can do a good summarization, so that anybody can come and say, okay, clear, this is what happened in this invoice. Instead of going through like 100 back and forth, you can have like a 5 sentence summary of that.
All
Yeah.
right. Exciting stuff. I also like the strategic approach. So it's not just, shove in every fancy feature. It's let's do what's actually valuable here. Um, all right. So let's see. Let's go to Matt. Any last thoughts that you want to share with the group? Outlook on the future of
Mhm.
what, a CFO role looks like
Yeah.
at a contractor or anything else?
Yeah, I think in relation to this discussion and technology, I think, CFOs, accountants, they kind of are, we're kind of cut from a certain kind of cloth,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe we aren't as visionary as others. And so I find, one, it really benefits me to find partners like Rishi and others that I can be. Help me expand my vision and into what solutions are out there and what's possible. Um, you know, I think we need to look at what's holding us back. What are our pain points?
Mm-hmm.
What do you kind of really do need to develop a vision of what kind of this. I wish I didn't have to do this part of my job anymore. Going back to the
Yeah.
old adage of that they teach us in business school about value add. Does this what I'm doing adding value to the person that's paying my company? do they care that I'm doing this? And the more we can get rid of that or take the friction out of those things, the better. And so, I think we're entering technology is always evolving, and we're having a lot of really exciting things happen. And so I think it's, the more we can network and work together and have partnerships to help us expand our vision and mind and find solutions to these pain points, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a big call for, attracting talent. Like, hey, it might be the construction industry and, the accounting side might be this back process that nobody really sees. But hey, we're visionaries. We're using AI and automation so that, you can do a lot more, like you said, high value tasks. So I love that vision. And I think you guys are actually living that reality a little bit here. So amazing to see the transformation. So I want to share, before I close out with you, Rishi, one last comment that came up. So I really appreciate this. It's a really valuable discussion. Great to see me and the panel shed light on how technology is reshaping the construction process from planning to execution. These kinds of conversations are key for pushing the industry forward. So I think that just underscores, the value of your time, our audience's time. We really appreciate, bringing your guys' expertise to the table. So I just really appreciated that comment. So thank you, Provi. And then we're in the last few minutes here. So Rishi, how about you close us out? Tell us, a little bit about your future or your vision for the future of the industry, and then also where our audience can find you or how people can maybe connect with you.
Yeah. So I think future's bright, and that's where I'm gonna start.
Yeah,
People are seeing
optimism.
the potential. We all are very capable mm, human beings. Uh, like something I was remembering, like from like 30 years ago. Uh, Computers came and everyone got very nervous, right? They're gonna come and take all these jobs.
Mm.
And like now we like look at now, and our GDP as world has grown maybe more than 50-fold, I feel like.
Mm.
Yes. So we have to realize that, like, if we want to live as a prosperous society, there's, I mean, carefully planning uh, the, our life and our time is critical. And I feel like more and more mm, uh, people are going to be coming that way, uh, to adopt things that work well, you know. And mm in terms of like 10 years down the line, I feel like
Mhm.
things are not gonna look the same. There's gonna be
Yeah,
that I can
absolutely.
guarantee, right? I mean, whoever is thinking that, okay, I'm kind of in my own cocoon and I can, you know not follow the major trends that are happening, they kind of eluding themselves, in some ways.
Hmm. And then, last note, where can people find you if they
Yes.
want to connect or learn more?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn, and you can also um, email me. So I'm gonna paste my email address here in the chat. Is there a way for me to
You can
paste
also
something?
make a comment later on at least the LinkedIn page. So
Okay, so yeah,
no worries if you can't do it live.
if you wanna reach out to me, my email is rishi@beinghuman.com. So my first name and then at beinghuman.com. Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you.
All right. Well, we're in the last minute. I absolutely appreciate the discussion, your insights, learning more about the AP automation processes, because that's something that isn't often, opened up the way that, Matt, you demoed for us, and Rishi, you also had your platform demoed by Matt for us. So thank you guys for that level of detail and insight and for sharing your expertise with us. And thank you, audience, for hanging on. I see we have a few that are still on. Appreciate you. And we hope to see you on at the next construction technology webinar. So with that, we will wrap and thank you guys again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.